A family in Colorado heard a scary urban legend about the renovated Buddhist monastery that they had decided to move into as their home. And they are now suing the realtor, claiming that this urban legend turned out to be true and that they suffered very serious health consequences as a result. I'm Kevin Nooper. I'm an attorney at Nooper and Covey, and I want to walk you through this crazy lawsuit. This is the monastery. It's been renovated into this giant mansion now. It's 27,000 square feet. It was built by this guy named Howard Selby III in the 1990s, who also calls himself Binks. And he built this mansion at a time when there was a lot of environmental outcry about this. There was a local group that strongly opposed him. Back then he was building a monastery, but they didn't want the monastery there. It's kind of in a rural area. They didn't want it there for environmental reasons, and there was a lot of protests and a lot of outcry. And there was a rumor going around that this environmental group had poisoned the well that the monks were using for water. And by now, by the time the family bought this, there were no longer monks there. This had been renovated into a regular house, and they heard these rumors, but they went ahead and bought the house anyway, despite having heard from neighbors, hey, this is what happened to the monastery. There's a really good Denver Post article about this lawsuit, about what was going on. And the Denver Post is reporting that the family was told by their realtor, or they're alleging this, that the realtor said, this is all just a rumor. Nothing like that happened. It's not a big deal. And Mr. Selby had actually made a water filtration company in the past, and he told them the water was so good that you could just sort of drink it without any filtration at all. And so they decided to go ahead and purchase the house because they were being told by all these people, hey, nothing's wrong with it. Although they say now that there were some red flags that they didn't catch, which was that the realtors, while they were on the property, were only drinking bottled water and didn't actually drink water from the property itself. You can see, I'll show you a little more of this property. It's pretty unique, and it actually is kind of cool. You can see there that it is this giant mansion, because it wasn't designed to be a mansion or to have people or have one family live in it. The family moved in with their two small children, and you can see that this room is very large. This is all stuff that where there used to be a design for it to actually have monks in it. They do keep the gong. They've got a little bit of a monastery Buddhist type feel to this. And you can see this giant room. Who knows what that was before, but now it's this big living area. And if you don't know how big 27,000 square feet is, if you haven't bought a house before, that is a lot. That is basically 10 houses at a minimum. If you're in California, your house might be 2,000 square feet. That would be a big house that could be more than $1 million. I'm from Texas originally. If you got a 3,000 square foot house, that would be big. A 7,000 square foot house would be a mansion, probably anywhere. This one is 27,000 square feet. The ceiling, you can see there's kind of a little bit of a warehouse design. It does look very nice, but you want to be able to drink the water on your property. And this is in a rural area. In those areas, a lot of the property, you can see it's kind of off on the hills there. Nice view, but they're often getting their property from wells. What happened when the family actually moved in there? Well, things were okay for a while, but according to this Denver Post article, and I'll link this for you so you can go read it. They bought this thing for $2.5 million in September 2021, and a little bit after they move in, they start getting sick. The whole family starts getting numbness, pain in their hands and feet, headaches, stomach aches and nausea, sore throats that wouldn't go away. They say that they had a third child who was born there and has had cognitive delays. And they decided in April 2023, so a little over maybe a year and a half when they moved in, they decided to have the water tested. And they found out that there were extremely dangerous levels of arsenic and unsafe levels of uranium in the water. So they are now they filed a lawsuit saying that they face increased risk of cancer. They had 20 months of arsenic poisoning, and they say that the real estate agents lied about the water whenever they were trying to convince them to purchase the property, and so that those agents would be responsible for all these damages that they're going to suffer. Because with that kind of poisoning, it's very serious, and they would have elevated risks for the rest of their life. The family is saying they think that this urban legend was actually true and that the monastery had been poisoned by one of these environmental groups. There are people who have said that perhaps this wasn't poisoning, perhaps this was something with the just with the groundwater in the area, because uranium can occur naturally in some cases. The level of arsenic seems pretty high, but that could be something where there's possibility that could be from a natural formation. But in any event, the water was not safe to drink according to the family, certainly if it's causing all these issues. Now, the other concern may be that the family moved in despite hearing this rumor and just sort of discounted it. And if they really took notice of the realtors drinking only bottled water, you might say, hey, you were on notice. Hey, you really should have gone and tested the water yourself a long time before actually going in and drinking it, and then waiting for the health problems to actually occur. The question for a jury will be, was it reasonable for the family to rely on what Mr. Selby was telling them, what the realtors were telling them? That's assuming that that's what was said, because in a lawsuit, ultimately the jury decides both what were the facts. We don't know what the realtors are going to say about this, or what anyone else will say. And was it reasonable for them to go ahead and move in when they have people saying, no, the well's fine, you can just drink straight out of it, it's not a big deal, and that's just some rumor that people made up about this house is kind of like a little story. There's still members around, or people who were in that environmental group back in the 1990s. They say it's ridiculous. They didn't have access to arsenic or uranium. And if someone did this, then it wasn't them. Um, did Mr. Selby have someone else who had a grudge against him? Is it just something natural? We may never know, because it's hard to piece that together 20 or 30 years later. But did the family suffer from this? Yes. And ultimately for the jury, it's a question of, in a fraud case, or a case where you're alleging someone lied to you like this, it's reasonable reliance. Was it reasonable to rely on this? Given all the facts the family knew, did they do everything they could to reduce their damages, or should they be responsible for some of the damages themselves? The way the law works is that they have something called comparative negligence. Colorado uses what's called modified comparative negligence. So comparative negligence means that a jury assigns a percentage of fault to each party in the case. So they could say, or it could be to other people who aren't parties to the case. They could say, oh, Mr. Selby is 10% responsible, the realtors are 60% responsible, and the family is 30% responsible. In Colorado, if the family's percentage goes over 50%, then they get nothing. If the family is under 50% responsible, then the people who are apportioned whatever percent who are defendants in the case have to pay their percentage that the jury assigned to them. So what will the jury do? We don't know, but this monastery appears not to be safe to live in unless you've got some serious water filters, no matter how cool it looks. If you want to see more videos about crazy lawsuits, hit subscribe.